Hello, 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 and good morning, everybody. So, I hope you guys are having a great Friday so far. This is Coffee with Chris every Friday at around 10 o'clock. Sometimes I try to make it right at 10, but that's how life is, I guess. So, I hope you guys are having a good Friday morning so far. Today, if you've watched me every Friday here when I come on here, you know what we like to go over is some coffee. Typically, we go over some news, and then we talk about the event industry in some format, primarily with hot shots being the main subject line. So, um, today is no different. We're going to be talking a little bit, not so much about coffee, but I'm going to let you guys know, especially you guys that are following on YouTube, some videos and stuff that I have coming up in the next week or a couple weeks here. And then just so everyone knows, I'm getting married this month, so yay. We're really excited about that. And I just forgot something. I got to make sure you guys can hear me, which I think we are good. So we're really excited about that. The wedding, and I've talked about this a couple of shows, so I'm not going to go into it and bore you guys much anymore about it. But we've made some big changes, and quite honestly, we're excited just to get married. So that's coming up soon. And so the reason why I'm telling you that is there will be some hiccups here in the next couple of weeks, because then I'm going on a honeymoon for about a week or two, and so we'll be gone. I'll be gone, and so you won't be seeing as much content, and we might even have to pre-record, or we might miss a Friday. I don't know yet, but just want to let you guys know that, just so you have that in advance. So today I wanted to go over what I'm going to be talking about here is not coffee, but actually apple cider. Okay, so I'm going to be doing some videos on the apple cider. I want to do reviews of these K-Cup apple ciders. And I think it really helps a lot of you guys out there. When I do the K-Cup reviews and do stuff like that, I want to kind of get a lot of those out there so you guys can kind of get some advice, because that's, to me, one of the most common types of coffees that you'll probably buy, either ground bags of coffee or you're going to be buying K-Cups of some format or what have you. And Nespresso, things like that, which we should do a Nespresso review soon, and we should just talk about Nespresso in general, because I think that's a popular coffee as well. You guys really seem to like my coffee reviews, and you guys really seem to enjoy my reviews on the equipment, and especially the comparison. I think one of my strongest videos right now is the comparison video of the Walmart brewer K-Cup machine and then the Keurig K-Cup machine, and my kind of battle between the two and my recommendation on that. I think everyone really enjoyed that. So I want to try to get more of that stuff out there for you guys, but I also want to do it in a quick manner and be able to give you guys content a little bit faster, a little bit more consistently. But enough of that. So talking about cider, so I got this one. This is one I'll be kind of reviewing for you guys today, just kind of as a quick sneak peek of what I'm working on, but I'm trying to get all the ciders. That's one. Mott's has one here. This is one of their new ones, I guess. This is a new one, which I'll do a review over. And then we also have Green Mountain has an apple cider as well, which I'll be doing a review over that one too. But today, let's talk about this one. Now, here at Hot Shots, we do a mulled cider. So if you guys aren't familiar with a mulled cider is more like a hot spice cider. It's really, really good. But some people, it's a different taste entirely. I learned about mulled cider up north. It's more of a northeastern type of deal, as far as I'm concerned and heard about. When I talk and go to events and say, oh, this is our mulled cider, people think of mulled wine, mulling spices and wine, which quite honestly, it's very much the same thing. You actually almost use the same process, or can use the same process to create that type of cider. But malt cider is really delicious. So it is a little bit different than this type of cider. This cider is more just kind of a cider. It's spiced and all that, but mulled cider is a little bit more more on the spicy side, if that makes sense. Not hot spicy, but more just cinnamon, nutmeg, a lot of these different types of cloves, things like that that really bring out a different taste entirely. So let's start there. Let's try this. Now, this is Alpine Spiced Apple Cider. I got this at the local grocery store. Actually, I got it last night. And so let's just try it here. Shout out to Don, my right-hand man. He got me, this is our wedding gift. We got this and another mug. And so what it says here is it says, actually, I don't know if you can see it. It says, actually, I can. So I got it immediately. I think Liz is still getting it. And to you, Don, you know what we're talking about here. But, when both of us say, hey, we got to take out the trash or one of the others got to do something, you can hold up your cup and say, well, you know what? Actually, I can do it, sweetheart. So at least that's how it's presented to me, how I'm looking at it. So let's give this a good taste. The Alpine Cider Spiced Apple Cider by Alpine. Okay, so let's try this. Definitely has some good color. It's very, very dark in color. Unfortunately, this won't wake me up. This might put me asleep. But yeah, I think it's always good to do something different too. We always talk about coffee, but a lot of you guys out there are tea drinkers, cider drinkers. So I think it's good to go over those different types of drinks and do a little review on them. The one thing I'll tell you that I do and don't like, I like that it's a dark cider. It's not anything, and I don't want to get into detail of some of these other ones that I've actually already started pre-trying. But it's a darker cider, so it's definitely not light like an apple cider. It's definitely dark. I don't taste really any spice to it. Maybe it's just my morning taste buds, but I mean, maybe there's an attempt to do some spice in there, but I'm really not tasting it, to be honest with you. It's a little watered down, which a lot of this Keurig stuff, I'll tell you, one of my biggest gripes about it is it's really made for like 6 or 8 ounces. And most of the stuff is okay at that level. But something I'm finding with some of these ciders is, and just Keurig in general with a lot of the K-Cups, is it actually really gets watered down. And so that's one of my biggest complaints. This isn't as watered down, but it's also not really bold and impactful as what you would like. But it's not bad. And I'll do a review on this. I'll do a review on the others. Maybe do a full review just on all of them. I don't know yet. But be on the lookout for that. And if you guys don't know already, be sure to go down and follow us on all the major social media platforms. Supposedly today, TikTok's supposed to go down, so we'll see if that happens. So then I'll have to take that off of there. But LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, you guys are already much on all of these different platforms. But we also have a great Instagram. Once again, someone's here at my front door. Typical Fridays, right? Instagram, all these different social media platforms. So make sure you guys follow us. If you like my content, I really, really, really appreciate it. If you follow, like, share my content, let your friends and family know about the coffee experience as well as what we kind of do here with reviews and everything else. So let's get into some news, shall we? So the first thing I wanted to talk about in the news world that's coming out is really 12 items that fuel. Now this is 12 items that fuel my coffee addiction. But this is basically from Lifehacker, and it was an article that talked about 12 different things that every coffee person needed. Hopefully it's the same one. Oh no, it's a slideshow. let's see here. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to actually just read it. Let's see here. I hate it when they do the slideshow thing. I apologize, guys. It's something I probably should have looked at in advance. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, we'll just do the slideshow. Seems like it's not going to cause any problems. All right, so good coffee beans is one thing, which I definitely agree with. A lot of this stuff, I get a lot of these articles. I see a lot of these articles, and I'm always like, some of this is common sense to me, and it might be for you as well. But sometimes it's not, especially if you're new to drinking coffee. You don't know all these things and know that, obviously good coffee beans is pretty common sense. But what does good coffee beans mean? What does that mean? And partly means is, when you go to a grocery store, and this is something I found out early on, is, you think the best coffee beans are typically those ones that are in those canisters. And this is a secret. Maybe you guys don't know this. But a lot of people find that those are the best coffee beans that you can get. And quite honestly, they're not. They're actually the most stale coffee beans you can get and the ones that sit the longest. But they're there. They want you to utilize them because they're typically the grocery store brand coffee that's in those containers, and they want you to fill that up first. But a lot of people, you got so many coffee choices. So, you'll find that sometimes those are the worst ones, or the most stale, especially if it's a place that has a ton of different coffee beans and all of this. So that's something to think about and look out for. But starting with good coffee beans really is important. And I think it's something that we should all definitely, if you're new to coffee, you need to start with just good beans, freshest coffee that you can get. And normally with a lot of the roasters today, they actually stamp on the package the dates and things like that. Just like anything else, when you grab a coffee bag, I know Lavazza does this too. They might not have when it was roasted, but they might have a freshness date. And so normally it's a year out, whatever. Just like when you're in a grocery store looking at other items, what's the freshest? No, normally not that first one that you can take off the shelf, but the third, fourth, fifth one behind. So do that as well. If you really want, obviously other things might not matter as much, but if you're like me and you really want to have good fresh coffee, try considering grabbing the next one off the shelf instead of that first one in line. Okay, so let's talk about this. A good burr grinder. Now, this is definitely true. I am, let's just face it, sometimes I am really, really cheap. I'm going to tell you guys that. Live my life pretty cheaply when it comes down to certain things. And sometimes there's certain items that it takes me a long time to buy the right thing. And I will tell you guys, as a personal opinion, no matter what you do in life, I do strive in most things to buy the best, but sometimes I just get a little cheap. And this is one area that I've been cheap on a long time, especially for home. So the other day I was grinding some beans here, and I was grinding them with a Ninja blender. Because I don't have a burr grinder here at my house. I know it sounds crazy, but I will tell you, getting a good grinder will make all the difference in the world when you're talking cups of coffee, when you're talking kind of getting the best and most consistent taste. And that's something, we need to do a video on that, I think, too, is showing what's the difference in taste if you just used a blender compared to using like a burr grinder or a proper grinder. And I will tell you, there is a difference because the consistency of the beans and how they're chopped and all that. Think of it like particles of sand or rocks. If you had rocks let's just say in a funnel, and you had sand in a funnel, and you poured water on top, which one's going to be faster for the water to go through? It's going to be the rocks, right? Because they're bigger, and consequently, in what I'm talking about here, just imagine rocks and sand. The rocks, the water's going to go through the rocks faster than the sand, or they should, right? So that's kind of the same concept here. Is you want evenly consistent bean grinding grounds, if you will, so that you can have a good, consistent um, coffee. All right, I need to spend less time on this. So, a digital scale, I will say this is a good thing. This is another thing, and one of the other articles I'm going to talk about this. But, a digital scale is something that you'll need if you want to do it correctly, if you want to get the best tasting, in theory, coffee that you can get. You need to have a good scale and get a good coffee scale so that you can measure out your beans and you can measure out your water and do all that ahead of time. A pour over thingy. You can get a pour over thingy pretty much anywhere these days. Hero makes the most popular and prestigious ones, but really all kinds of companies make them. Fellow, the brand that we sell on our site, they have pour overs. So definitely invest in one of these if you're getting into pour overs. For sure, using the right filters for your pour overs or whatever. That's what this is talking about. If you're gonna do pour over coffee, you don't use a standard coffee filter. You use kind of a browned cone shape, like they're talking about here. Hero #2 filters to do that. Gooseneck kettle is also something we've talked about that with our kettle. A fellow kettle that we did. The I think it was the I can't remember, the stag kettle that you guys remember in the YouTube video I did. It's really important that this gooseneck here that you see, the thing about it is the amount and speed of water that comes out of that. That is the purpose of that. So when you're doing pour overs, you don't want all the water just come pouring out on top of the coffee. You need it to come out slow. And if you think about it, if you ever look at a coffee machine inside, if you did a split view of like a Mr. Coffee while it's brewing, it's not just dumping coffee on top of your beans. That's why it takes so long to brew. It's actually kind of sprinkling the water at a slow rate and just kind of saturating the beans. And that's what makes a good coffee, because you want those beans to be saturated and get all the flavor out of them. Wide mouth water bottle. Okay, you can get a wide mouth water bottle if you guys want. I don't know. Ice cube trays. Now this one's kind of a little Starbucksy, if you will, for me. But they, I think Liz, you might do this. I don't know. She'll probably chime in here and tell me if she does this. But you get ice cube trays. You put your coffee in it, and then you have cold brew or whatever you want to do with it, I guess. So I've never really actually even experimented with this. It'd be something good that we can do in a video, but I don't know. Tell me if you guys do this. That's basically what you do. You make coffee out of your ice cubes or ice cubes out of your coffee. You put it in a glass, you add milk, and now you have a iced latte, I guess. Pour over French press, A French press, different from the pour overs and all that. French press is actually a really nice way to make a good cup of coffee, but you do have to do it correctly. A lot of people do not know how to do a French press. I think we've even done a video on French press. I know we have, actually. So go check that out if you want to properly know how to do a French press correctly. A mocha pot. I like a mocha pot, especially if you want to know the traditional way of making an espresso. This is really kind of the first ways, if I remember right, as how espresso was made. So one of the early inventions, and this is called a stovetop mocha pot. You fill up the bottom with water. You put your coffee and stuff on top. And then you actually create kind of this, it's basically an espresso maker. But anyways, check that out. That's something definitely, if you want to get started, something great to do. A milk frother. Yes, I think you need one of these, but I would not buy this version. I also wouldn't buy the ones that are like the little kind of blade things. I don't know if you guys have seen that. Like they're like this big. They have a little motor, and then they have a little whipper on top, and then you hold them down. They go bzzz, like a little blender. Those are great if you're in a bind and that's what you want to do for froth milk. Quite honestly, I have some great options if you guys are interested in frothing milk. I've been frothing milk realistically for 15 years, so I know more about frothers than most baristas do because they don't use frothers. But if you want to get a good one, get a good frother. Nespresso out there has a decent one. Starbucks even has a decent one. They all copy each other now because there's only a couple companies that even make them. But Breville is our favorite, and that's what we use for all of our events and things to actually add a little bit of foam on top of drinks and all of that. So Breville makes the best one as far as I'm concerned, but we can get into that another day. That's going to be too much to talk about. Your favorite mug. You got to have your favorite mug. I definitely agree with that. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so let's talk about something else here. Why is it worth weighing your coffee? Now, I'm not going to go into this too much. I just wanted to just show you guys this because I think this would make a great video. You guys let me know in the comment section below. But this is very much like when I was talking about water and TDS levels. Do they matter? If you guys remember that video. I think we should do a video at some point talking about, grinding beans and measuring the beans. And does the measurements really matter? If I just eyeballed it compared to what putting it in, would I taste a big difference in the coffee? And I don't think anyone's done any videos like that yet, so I think we should do that. So you guys let me know in the comment section if that's something you'd like to see. I'd love to bring that to you guys. Okay, so let's talk about this real quick. 5 iced coffee mistakes you're probably making according to a master barista. Oh, okay. So let's see what this says. Oh, I wish this thing would scroll better. Oh, and of course. Oh, well, at least it's not a thing that changes. Okay. Okay, you're not storing your beans correctly. All right. Let's see here. If this will scroll for me correctly, then I can see if my beans are stored correctly. All right, you're not storing your beans correctly. And so this is a barista saying you need to preserve your beans. He's talking about the OXO. If you've seen some of these and they're popular, matter of fact, I'm getting my hands on some in our store that you guys will be able to purchase real soon. Are these kind of canisters that take out all the oxygen. And I think that's a great idea. That would be obviously another video we could talk about in the future, storing beans and coffee. But who knows if that's really a big difference, if you're going to see a big difference. I would say this. I think when you open the bag, if you can seal the bag the best way possible, it's always going to make for a fresher coffee. But I do find that when you open that bag, as soon as oxygen gets to those beans, most of the time, especially if it's ground coffee, it's over. I find that the very first thing I'll tell you is, if you're going to store coffee, store whole bean coffee, and that's going to last you the longest. When you get ground coffee, it's not going to last you that long. It might last you a couple days, and I don't care if you put it in something that's vacuum sealed. Every time you open it, air has to touch it. So, in the long run, does it really matter? Maybe. But, if it can give you a week better of tasting coffee through the whole week and you can finish that whole bag of coffee instead of being like, I don't want to drink this anymore, then I think it's perfect. Your coffee to water ratio is off. That is pretty common, and in here he's talking about 1 to 2 tablespoons for 6 ounces of water. I think a lot of people, when they brew coffee, and he's talking about iced coffees here, you will find that it does take time to really learn if you're going to do cold brew. It's kind of how I'm calling this. If you're going to do iced coffee, cold brew, your coffee to water ratio changes as well as the type of beans in the coffee you're brewing. You need to understand that the grind is important, but it also all comes down to your taste. So you're going to have to experiment. You don't just go out there and buy a can of coffee and go turn it into cold brew and say, oh yeah, this is great. You could get lucky doing that, but it's really going to take you a couple times, if not several times, to really come down to the right water ratio to coffee and all that. But that is a common mistake, so I agree with him there. You are using, where is it? Putting hot coffee in the fridge. So what happens when you put hot bowl of soup in the fridge? I learned this actually from Gordon Ramsay because he used to yell at people for it on his show. But you never put anything hot in a refrigerator because what happens to it? It turns sour, right? The taste changes, and it also probably goes bad. But same thing with coffee. You don't just brew a hot pot of coffee and you throw it in the fridge. What happens there? The same thing. You're going to create too much acidity in that coffee, and you're going to be like, "Wow, this is really nasty," And so, yeah, you typically don't want to do that. You want to get a nice little cold brewer so you can do that and do it right. Okay, I apologize, guys. I don't know why this thing, like I said, always wants to just do what it wants to do. Okay, just putting hot coffee in the fridge. Okay, you could be using the wrong type of water or ice. Seriously. Okay, he's talking about TDS here, and we don't really need to go into that, but you guys know that's one of the main things I talked about before is TDS and how TDS can really change coffee. So we we talked about that in the past, is talking about TDS. So let's really quickly here, because I don't want to take up too much time. I want to do this in less than really 10 minutes. This is something I've talked about before, but going into more of the hot shots thing, I was thinking today, I like to reiterate this because I think it's so important, but really talking about not just here at Hot Shots, but when you do an event, and whether you're doing an event and you're going to hire a caterer, you're doing some kind of concert, you're doing whatever type of event that you're doing, I have about 10 principles that I've talked about. Really, I started talking about them last year, but I wanted to talk about them here again. And I just want to quickly reiterate these because I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these either do all the videos and put them in one video, or I'm going to just redo all the videos I did in the past about this, which you guys on YouTube have not seen any of this content. So this is going to be a first time for you. But I did a series last year called 10 Tips in 10 Days. And so I went over each one of these in depth a little bit more than I'm going to do right now. But I think it's important if you're planning an event out there and you're going to put something together, you should know how to do that. And there's certain things that you need to look out for when you're doing that. So the very first one is know what you want. And so if you're putting an event together, you really need to sit down and figure out, okay, what do I want at this event? Do I want a cotton candy bar? Do I want a coffee bar? Do I want, what kind of catering do I want? What other entertainment vendors do I want? Do I want a balloon person, a face painter, things like that? And the importance of that, obviously, is not just going in it blind and start calling up vendors and saying, hey, I might want you for this event or what have you. One of the biggest things and struggles for us, and I can tell you this for every single vendor that's out there, is getting on the phone with someone and they don't even know, they haven't even started the event yet. They have no idea what's going to happen with the event, but they just want a price. I'm happy to give you a price, as same with many other vendors out there, but the price will not make a lot of sense if you don't know exactly what you want, because it's easier for me to scare you off with the price. Just like any other vendor, because you might have an ideology, or maybe not ideology is the wrong term, but you might have a in your mind a number or whatever you're looking at that you think the value is for what you want. And realistically, it's because you didn't go through yet and really evaluate what you want and the value that you want to put to it. So that's one of the first things I'll say. Number two, following along with that, is really know your budget. You should really know your budget and finding out exactly how much you want to spend on that particular vendor, on that purpose. I go through this a lot with brides, because brides are someone with our customers, or someone who's, more budget conscious than a lot of our other customers. And it makes sense. I mean, we've been planning our wedding, and it's the same thing, me and my fiance, and it's the same thing, is just trying to figure out, what do we want? We planned the budget, and then obviously COVID happens and that changes everything. But you got to do your best on coming up with a budget, figuring out what you want to spend, how you want to do it, and putting it all together. So that also goes into knowing what you want. When you have a budget and you know what you want to spend on something, especially when I talk to brides, it's like, well, do we want to spend a couple grand on a coffee bar? Or do we want to just do like something small? I had a bride last week call me, and it wasn't the big point of her wedding was to have the coffee bar. Even though she was doing some coffee cups and she was getting some drip coffee, her goal wasn't to do anything with a real fancy coffee bar, and that's fine. And if that's the case, then there's no point in spending a lot of money to have something amazing like that. You want to do it in another way, make it amazing with maybe Keurig machines or pour over system or something like that. So that's something I always say is know your budget, know what you want, so that you can put those two together and then be able to move forward. Number 3, get a good guest count. This is very important. And this kind of goes back to the other ones is, there's no way that if you gave us a call or you gave anybody that's a professional in the industry a call and said, hey, I want to do this event, but I have no idea how many people are coming. Believe it or not, that is a common question or common answer that I get when I ask that question is how many people are coming, what have you, or they tell me that. It just blows my mind. You're planning an event and you don't know how anything's coming. Normally, it's just kind of a side question. They just want to know your price. I get that. But a lot of times, too, it is honest because I do these events. I've been doing this for over 15 years. And there's a lot of people out there that really don't know what they're doing or what they're getting. And unfortunately, a lot of times it ends up with a bad event, because you didn't plan anything, you don't know how many people are coming, and then you run out of food or you run out of stuff, and then you're upset with the vendors. But realistically, it's not always the vendor's fault if that happens. And with us, we're professional. We always know our numbers. And for us, we make sure that if you are hiring us, that you know your numbers, because we're not going to give you anything or continue to start working with you until you know what you're expecting and you're agreeing to what our terms are. So that's something too that, if you're out there and you're planning an event, know your numbers. This time of year, this COVID pandemic thing, it's hard to know numbers. And so I think on that end, the vendors have to give up a little bit so that, it's kind of a share tactic here for vendors and people who are bringing an event together, planners, what have you, able to work together a little bit better, especially with this. So number 4, keep good communication. This goes to not just you with your vendors, but this should also be, if you're a vendor out there, you should have good communication with whoever you're working with. With us, a lot of times I follow up with emails. I really try to get people's phone numbers so I can text them. I tell all my clients and customers, hey, text me if you go to a vendor, and I have a lot of brides that do this, or even, conventions and stuff. Conventions are big for this too, because I really like to see the space, and normally you don't get to see the space at a convention pretty much until the day of, which is kind of crazy. So it's always good to have good communication. Make sure that you're sharing a phone number with your vendor so that they can have a good way to contact you. And don't be afraid to take a picture, for instance, of a booth space or a bar space or wherever you want that vendor to be, and say, hey, this is what I have. Is this going to work for you? I've had people do that in their house, in their kitchen where we're setting up. I normally like to see outlets. I normally like to see what space we're working with, especially if it's something too outside. You got to think about that. Your vendor might not be prepared to go outside. So it's always good to share these things and really have good communication. Read the contract is number 5. So, you always want to read the contract, read the fine details. I could tell you, even if you read the contract, there will be things, more than likely, not all the time, but in a lot of ways, I shouldn't say more than likely, but there are times when you read the contract, you agreed everything to it, but things change that are out of your control, and the contract may or may not be in your favor. This pandemic is a great example. Right now, we have a lot of brides and a lot of people out there suing vendors, suing venues, because they're sticking to their contracts, which is fine. I understand you want to stick to your contract, But I think in this age, you have a force majeure clause. You have some of these things that we're really going to see in the court system, how holding on large sums of money when you didn't earn it, you don't deserve it, in my experience, and you're just kind of taking advantage of a bride. Or anyone for that matter. We're seeing this in conventions and everything else that people had planned. We'll see how this all turns out, but that is definitely an issue or a problem that could be a major problem. So read your contract. Number 6, plan your space. When you're putting stuff together, you need to plan your space and understand exactly what you want and what you want for everyone else. Make sure your space, for instance, if you're doing something outside, and we talked about this, but if you're doing something outside and a vendor might not always work outside, what do they need? Do they need power? Do they need a little roof over their head? I worked at an event one time, and we traveled for this one down in San Antonio. It was for a major medical kind of convention show. And we're at this beautiful hotel. We set up outside, and literally, it was my fault, but literally we were dead in the sun. And it, to be honest with you, sucked. Because not only were we hot and dripping with sweat and everything else, the machines and stuff were just cooking. And so you don't want to have that scenario. Vendors don't want to have that scenario. You don't want to have that scenario. I remember paying like $40 for sunscreen because the only place I could get it was at the hotel gift shop. And so you just don't want to have that issue. You want it to be perfect, and you want everything to look nice and all that. And so yeah, so that's something to think about. Plan your space so that it works for everyone, not only for you, because you do want to know where everything is. That's the other thing. You don't want to have an event where all your vendors are coming in and you're like, oh yeah, just go over there, and you go over there, and then you didn't think about their power. You didn't think. That happens all the time, and that's one of my big pet peeves is you got to know what you're doing and what you're doing with your event instead of just doing it the day of. You got to plan your space. Okay. 7, have a good contact. It's not a contract, but a good contact. There's a lot of times we work with someone, and then the person that we're working with is in a different state. So we're not even talking to the person that's going to be on site. For us, we always get a good contact, someone that we know who is going to be at that event, who's going to be on that location. So for you, planning your event, you need to have someone second in command, third in command. And regardless, maybe you get sick the day of, you need to have someone else that knows what's going on, especially if it's a big event. You'll probably have several people. But that's something too. Have a good contact. Have someone that knows and can answer the same questions that you would be asked, can do it on site. And if not, they can text you or what have you. But you have someone else there that can kind of handle a lot of things too, because you want to be able to have your mind clear and go into an event, especially if you're hosting this event. You want to have your mind clear and be able to do the event just perfectly and not have any issues. So best way to do that is have someone else kind of know everything that you know or close to it, and can handle vendors' questions as well as anybody else for setting up an event and what have you. Put that on the ground. I got some of these listed here. Number 8 is have fun. Believe it or not, I've seen from brides, I've seen from a lot of people sometimes is, I look at them and I wonder if they're having as much fun as they wanted. And to be honest with you, the ones that are not having a lot of fun, I find it more that it's because of the vendors that they chose. And it's a lot of times it's just disaster things, and I'm normally the one there that's, if it's me or any of my guys, we're normally the ones fixing everything for the bride or for the venue, for the event or the client. And believe it or not, I've seen this so many times. It's really heartbreaking because, when you're a professional and you know what other professionals can do and all that, you would tell people about them all day long, which we do. And a lot of times clients still go with the cheaper option or what have you. And then come the event time, they don't show up. And then it's a disaster. I did one holiday event where they were supposed to have a casino, right? They were supposed to do this whole casino. They do it every year, right? and the vendor didn't show up. They forgot the date or they did something, and we were there early. We were ready to go, and they were telling me this story, and they were the whole event kind of got screwed up because they were frantically looking for someone to come out and do this. Now I don't know if they were hiring someone on the cheap, but I could tell you whoever they hired wasn't professional. And yeah, so they were frantically trying to get them to come out. They, if I remember right, they weren't coming out, and so they had to change it. But unfortunately, the whole part of the holiday party theme was a casino, and there was no casino table. So you can imagine how crazy that would be. But yeah, it was just a mess. So number 9. Going back to number 8, have fun. Have fun with your event. Hire good professional people. You won't have a problem. You always have fun. You always have a great event. Number 9, clean up. You want to get people that are going to help you clean up. You want to think about cleanup. You want to, especially if you're having a wedding, a lot of brides go into this thinking, oh, everything about the wedding, we got everything all scheduled and everything. It's going to be great. But then the only thing you don't think about is at the end of the night, who's cleaning up everything? Uncle Tom and mom and dad and all these people kind of bring in everything together. Are you guys going to actually do something, clean up everything and get you outdoor, if you will? So anyways, that's something too to think about, is clean up. Number 10, event reflection. You want to reflect back on the event that you had. So not so much, well, brides can do this too, but I find that a lot of times, brides, when they're done with the event, they're done with the event. They're just, they're ready to go, right? They don't want to think about the wedding and reflect on it. But a lot of times it's good. It's good to have a reflection, know what went well, especially with any event. Go back and think about what went well, what could do changes, what vendors might you want to try next time. Think things like that of what you can do for event reflection, and really just kind of understand what, reflect on the event. I know planners and people out there that do events all the time. And when you do events all the time, or you do especially big events, it's really, really good to reflect. Because if you don't, you're going to find that you're doing the same events over and over again. And then you're going to wonder, well, why are these events not going as well as I wanted them to? Why are they becoming a disaster or what have you? And really that's why, is because you're not reflecting on what's going on with your event. So other than that, guys, that was it. I wanted to go over those. Like I said, I'm going to put those later on YouTube, and be able to have a good way for you guys to get this information. But hope you guys enjoyed the Friday Coffee with Chris with me today. I know it wasn't coffee. It was just some cider. Sometimes things change after they sit for a while, which is pretty good. So anyways, I hope you guys have a great Friday, great rest of your day. I know this is kind of a long video, but I think you guys enjoy it. And I will see you guys next time. Remember, follow us on all these different platforms. If you're following us just on YouTube, I'd love to see you guys on Facebook and Instagram and all these other things. So definitely follow us. And TikTok, we got a little TikTok profile now. So yeah, I hope to see you guys soon. And next Friday we should be good. Next couple Fridays it should be good. But I'll be getting married, so I'll be going away for a while for our honeymoon, and we'll see what I can do. Maybe I might have a few treats for you guys of where we end up for doing the show. So other than that, thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks so much.